Ashley Abercrombie, welcome to Life Today.
I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Are you? You watch us all the time? Is that the way it works?
I do watch you some.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
Well, good. And you check out yourself when
Yes,
you're on
I
Life
will,
Today.
and I'll share it with everyone. I'm very excited.
How is Harlem these days?
Oh, Harlem is good.
Yeah?
Yes.
You like it up there?
You know what I love about it is our giant sidewalks. That part makes me really happy.
Are those called streets?
You know, that's what people outside of Manhattan call them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have these huge
that's funny.
sidewalks where you don't have to walk like a sardine, but you can actually spread out a little.
See,
and
I get the
people
joke
say
because
hello to you.
I've been to Manhattan.
So you know what it's like.
Oh my gosh. And those are the ones that don't have the construction things over them.
Correct,
Right.
which are difficult.
So
yes.
Harlem's a little more space than that. I've never
Yes,
been to
it
Harlem.
is. And we're right by Central Park. So the very northern part of Central Park is just
Okay.
5 blocks from our house. So that's nice too. Having 2 little boys, that's a great place to go run them around.
In the world did you end up, if you're a North Carolina girl,
Yep.
end up in a church in Manhattan
Yes.
and living in Harlem?
I know. So I was raised in this tiny little town where there were 14,000 people. So that's very, very tiny. And then I went
In
off
the
to
South.
college in the South, in North Carolina, which, so much of that is so beautiful, right? This
Yeah,
experience of being in a small town, the neighborliness, the connection points, like so great. And then I went off to college, and on my college campus, there were 28,000 students. So you can imagine it was like culture shock to the nines.
funny.
And then college was a very difficult time for me. I had, a couple of the worst years of my life and struggled with eating disorder, bulimia, struggled with abuse of alcohol, using drugs, and just really trying to mask and escape my pain. I had never really fully learned how to have reciprocal relationships with others. I had never really fully learned how to take my mask off and admit that I had needs and admit that I had problems and that I needed help. I didn't know how to do that. And so I went through a series of events, suffered a rape on campus my sophomore year in college, which was a super difficult time. But because I had so learned to wear a mask, then I just got up the next morning and went to work as if nothing had happened to me. And so just kept trucking because that was the only way I really knew how to deal with pain.
Is that common, you think?
I don't know if everybody processes it that way. I mean, I think some people may go deeper into addiction. Some people may throw themselves into work. Some people may, throw themselves into shame. I mean, there's so many ways that I think women navigate the very difficult things that happen to us throughout our lifetime. But that was my way. And I also had an abortion in my college years, a very difficult time. It was the only time in my life that I had the abortion and said, I never want to speak about this to anyone ever again. And I prayed that I wouldn't wake up the next morning. But I did wake up. And then I made the decision to move across the country. And I was hoping to escape my life. Like, let me just get out of here. Maybe that's the solution.
How'd that go?
It went terribly.
It goes with you, doesn't it?
It sure does, because everywhere you go, there you are. And so unfortunately for me, I had to really start facing down my past and had to really start facing down my pain and really look at it and begin to discover that God is a God who's with us in our pain. That He's not aloof to our circumstances and He's not absent from our circumstances, but He's very present in pain and He's able to be with us. And I also got to learn in my healing process that God accepts me where I am, that He's comfortable with brokenness, that He doesn't expect me to be perfect, that He doesn't expect me to put a mask on and come to Him, that I don't have to clean myself up first. I can just come.
You just said a lot
I did.
in a short amount of time,
I
and
sure
it's
did.
a lot that people need to hear. So I kind of
Yeah.
went back. Okay, so just a little background.
Yep.
You grew up in a Christian home.
I didn't actually.
Oh, no, you didn't.
I
Okay,
didn't,
when did you
no.
become a Christian then?
So my great Aunt Fairy, this is a very unique story. So
Right.
literally my grandfather's aunt was never married, and she just made a decision to serve God her entire life. And she was in the same church from her teenage years until she died.
Okay.
And she raised me in that church. So when I was very little,
See, that's what I
she
thought.
would take me.
So you were raised in church, but you were not a
Yes.
Christian. That's where
Well,
I
I became a Christian at a young age, but no one else in my family besides my great-great-aunt was a believer. So I wasn't raised like in a Christian home.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, we had very high moral standards. My mom is so wonderful at teaching me how to live and how to love and how to be a good citizen, how to be a good person. She was so wonderful at that. But my faith experience really comes from my great-great-aunt Fairy.
Okay. You were a Christian from a very early age. Probably the
was.
best way to say that, right?
Yes, that's right.
Surely when you went to college, what you were raised to believe was not what you lived out.
Definitely not.
Right?
Definitely not.
So the choice is to drinking, which the church is split on. Some people have an issue with.
Sure.
Certainly the abusive side of it, we would all say,
Yes.
not a good thing.
Right.
And then smoking weed, which even though it's legal in some states now,
Yeah.
not a real good idea.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
What was going on internally with you? Did you even have any awareness that maybe this is not a good path for you to go down, or was it just party time and just you're in and over your head, or what was going on?
Well, I think a lot of young people are taught to sort of contain their emotions and contain the difficult things that they might be facing. Even something as simple as having confusing thoughts or having doubts or having insecurities and having no real safe space to say, I feel very insecure about this, or I felt very rejected by this, or I felt abandoned by this, and not having any language around difficult things. So I think because of that, I just learned to mask everything, and you just put the mask on and you live out your life, and even though you're really hurting inside, you pretend like you're not. And that was sort of my world. And it came to a crumble when I left for college, having had this beautiful cushion in my hometown with teachers knowing me and my beautiful mother and all these different support systems in a way that helped me sort of contain all the things and wear the mask. And then going off to college and really not having a support system. I think for me that really was the hammer that came through that image that I kept trying to create, because I realized I could no longer contain it. And I think I was tired of pretending.
Who were you really then?
Who was I really? You know, I think that there is sort of this a lie about brokenness where we assume that everybody is all good or all bad. And I think especially in the world that we're living in today, it's very easy to push people into a corner or push them into a camp or just live in a very polarized fashion. And I don't think that's new. I certainly think digital media has made that worse, but I don't think that's new. And so for me, I think that there was so much about me that's still the same. You know, I loved to laugh. I loved to write. I loved to do all the things that I did. It was funny. I had great relationships, but I just had not learned yet to have reciprocal relationships.
Gotcha.
So I didn't know how to be in a relationship and own my part. And I was so good at giving other people advice and allowing them to have safe space, but I also didn't know how to say, I need some too, and I'm really hurting. And so I think so much of me was the same, but because I couldn't find a healthy outlet, because I had legitimate needs, then I started meeting them in illegitimate ways.
Yeah, that's very often where we go wrong.
Totally,
Right.
Totally.
Right.
And sometimes simple relationships will help with that, you know, but I just didn't even know how to do it. I didn't know. I didn't have the tools.
Yeah. So you're dealing with a lot of people that are probably in the same place you were.
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling them? Is just, hey, speak up, reach out?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. You know, like in kind of the social work, I'm not an expert, but in the social work field, they talk about this idea of wraparound services. And I really love that. So when a person or a client comes, they need what they call wraparound services, which means they may need some therapy. They also need a great community. They also might need support groups. And there's very different outlets that kind of put support around a person, the wraparound services that will enable them to walk in wholeness. And I actually don't think that we're very different. I think that we do need a beautiful rooted faith community and strong, mutual, reciprocal, respectful relationships where we can genuinely be ourselves and we can genuinely allow others to be themselves and create that safe space. I think therapy is a beautiful idea. I think that support groups are beautiful. You know, recovery has been a really powerful tool in my life. I mean, 16 years of working steps and, you know, not living in denial and choosing to be courageous and serving others and getting up every day and doing the work. And so I think that's what it takes for us.
What prompted you to finally say, okay, I gotta get some help or do something about this, about the eating disorders, the addictions, the pain of everything, the rape, the abortion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot for it's too much for anyone to carry.
Too much. I think one of the most beautiful experiences I had was I was in college right before I was about to move across the country to Los Angeles. And I was driving around. At the time, I used to smoke menthol cigarettes. So I just grabbed a pack of cigarettes, got in my car, I drove around, and I landed in a parking lot, just an empty parking lot. And just like a movie, the sky just opened up and just started dumping buckets of rain. And I remember just sitting in my car and shouting, "Where are you, God? Where are you, God?" And just so, like, where are you in the midst of all this mess? Like, where are you, God? Like, where are you? And through that process, I just really felt like the Lord took like a gentle hammer on a dam I had built. And it was that moment that just cracked it open. And I felt the love of God and I felt the presence of God. And nothing was changing in my life, but I felt free to admit for the very first time, my life is totally out of control.
That's a huge change.
It's huge. And just to admit to God and to myself, really, because it's not like God didn't know,
Right.
but to admit to myself, I need help. Like, I'm not capable of managing this, and I'm not capable of fixing this. Like, God, I need you to help me.
That's huge.
It was huge. And it was a journey for me to be able to do that with others. Like, that took more time. But the fact that I had openly admitted to myself and to God started me, like, propelled me to move into the position where I could start to get help and start to be able to receive from others.
Yeah. That's almost where the healing begins.
I think so. I really do. Yeah.
How do we, as the church, as Christians who, we still struggle with stuff, but
Yeah, for sure.
sometimes I know I feel this anyway, I don't know how to talk to people
Yeah.
who are in those situations. They're in pain. I can empathize, but how do we really get in there to help someone who was where you were?
Totally. I learned from a dear friend of mine at the very beginning of my journey. And I remember her showing up at my house after I had totally lied on the phone and said I was completely fine. Like, I'm fine, everything's fine. And she showed up at my house and knocked on my door. And when I saw her standing there, I fell on the floor and just started bawling, just crying. And she laid down on the floor with me and just cried. She cried with me, and for the first time ever, I opened up and shared my story. And she didn't try to fix me. She didn't try to advise me. She didn't act like she was better than me. She just was with me. And I think that so much of that was so healing for me, because I realized she didn't have a leg up. And maybe that's a personal fear of mine, that people would take advantage of me, or that they would feel like, you know, they have some kind of higher, like, I'm here to help you. And so I think in her relating to me in a reciprocal way, she taught me that God looks at me that way, that he not only loves me because he wants to help me, but he loves me because he made me and because I'm a human being. And so I think sometimes in our zeal to help others, we sort of put ourselves in the superior position as if we aren't broken. Also?
But you want to show them, hey, this is how you get it all together.
Totally. And you can't.
The picture you just painted is one of the most beautiful I've ever heard, of laying on the floor and crying with you.
Yes. It was life-changing.
That may be really what the church needs to do a lot more of.
I think so.
Is laying on the floor and crying with you.
Yes. It would be so helpful, because I think that, people know, like, I knew that all the drugs and alcohol weren't great for me. I knew that the eating disorder was destroying me. I knew that the dysfunctional relationships I had in my life weren't good.
You need somebody to tell you.
Right. Like, I didn't need her to sit in the floor in front of me and tell me all the things I need to fix in my life. Like, I didn't already know. Like, people are not dumb, They're not. But we make decisions based on our context, and we make decisions based on, what has happened before we're in these situations. So I think a lot of Christians would do better just to ask questions and to be available. And, that's actually what led me back to church, because in my college years, I had experienced name calling and people, other Christians making assumptions about me and saying things to me, but also inviting me to their meetings to get saved. I was saved.
Yeah.
But they didn't ask me any questions, They didn't ask me why I was the way that I was. And so then meeting Christians like my friend, I was like, I want to come to church with you. Like, I've never met believers who just love me because I'm a human being that God made.
Yeah.
And that was revolutionary for me. It's like, it just further proved that I didn't have to clean myself up before I come to God. And it further proved that my value wasn't contingent on whether I made the best decisions or not, but my value is contingent on the God who made me. And I think that is like, wow, what a gift.
Last question.
Yes.
What happened when you brought your uncleaned up self to God?
Yeah. Well, it felt a little like, I've always been here, like, welcome home. That's what it felt like to me. Like, I've always been here. I've always loved you. Like, I didn't want you to get it together first. Like, I've always had a heart for you. I've always been right here in all the bad and all the good and all the monotony of life. Like, I've been right here. And I think because he taught me that, then I was able to start receiving that from others and recognizing that people just wanted to be with me because I'm awesome and God made me. And I like to be with others because they're made in his image and they're awesome and he made them. It's a powerful thing God taught me.
Truly.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing it with us. I want to mention that this is all in the book and more.
Yes.
Rise of the Truth Teller, available right now. Go get it. Is there a website for people that want to I don't know.
Of course.
See what else there is to see?
Yes, they could buy it wherever books is sold.
Sure.
And then also I have a website, ashabercrombie.org, and on there is my book trailer, YouVersion Bible studies, all kinds of content.
Yeah, I noticed that. A lot of people have
Yes.
done your YouVersion Bible study. And the YouVersion is a great Bible app. I use it all the time.
Me too.
And you
I
did the
love
little
it.
Bible study and it caught on. Good for you.
Yes,
And
thank
good for
you.
them.
Yes, thank you.
So that's cool. So yeah,
That's
people can
lovely.
check that out on YouVersion. And I just appreciate you are talking about some very difficult things,
Yeah.
but I love that you're willing to just put yourself out there
Yeah,
because a lot of people need to hear.
I agree.
What
We
you're
need to know
saying.
we're not alone in our pain.
Yeah.
We're not the only one.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.